Another nice tool for freehand drawing, similar to the pencil tool, is the Paintbrush Tool. You'll find it right here. Again, you'll see the little asterisk telling you can start drawing. And with the Paintbrush Tool, it already automatically applies a more paintbrush-like texture. You can always change the look of that here in the brush definition panel. And if you don't like the few options that are set here, make sure this is selected. Let's change it to charcoal. You can also go into your brush libraries menu, and there are many brushes to choose from, and you can always download other libraries here. So let's see Grunge Brushes Vector Pack, and I can get nice big beefy brush strokes. You can always change the thickness of these, although with the more designy brush strokes that's going to have a bit of a funny look, and you can apply a width profile to it as well. So that's the brush tool. Again, you can do freehand brush strokes, and they're editable as lines. So when I click on it with my direct selection tool, I can again adjust these points later on. If you click and hold on the brush tool, you get the Blob Brush Tool, which seems just like the brush tool except it paints automatically this thicker blobby shape. But let me show you what the difference is. When I go to click on this painted with the Blob Brush Tool, notice that it's not a single line, but a shape. So the Blob Brush Tool creates shapes instead of strokes, whereas the brush tool creates paths or strokes. So if I take the Blob Brush Tool and I keep drawing, I can actually fill this in and make a whole shape. Now notice what this looks like when I click on it with my direct selection tool. All those little squiggles I used to make this up are actually merged, and this is one whole shape. Watch what happens if I do the same thing with the Paintbrush tool. Making lots of squiggles. And let's take off this fancy brush so we can see what I did a little better. You can see now when I select this, which has that same blobby appearance as what I made with the blob brush, instead of it being a shape, it's very clearly a bunch of squiggles made out of paths. Whereas this is a shape, and it is editable as a shape. So with the Blob Brush tool, I can have those blobs that I draw merge and turn into one solid shape. And even if I come back later and keep drawing next to it, it adds on to that shape for me. So I can use the Blob Brush tool to paint in a whole form. Whereas if I did this with the Paintbrush tool, it would be made up of a bunch of squiggles. With the Blob Brush tool, this is a solid shape. So that's the main difference between the Paintbrush tool and the Blob Brush tool. The Paintbrush tool, the advantage of it is that you can put on all of these fun other brushes. If you make a condensed shape like this, it clearly gets very confused. Makes a little more sense to have a more interesting brush on a cleaner line. But there are all sorts of brushes you can find, all sorts of fun things you can do with this. And again, you can lose a ton of time in finding brushes, brush packs online and downloading them and experimenting with that. Just good to know the differences between these tools as you go on with your experiments.